Now let's get started talking about the features on a clock. The shorthand, which is the smaller hand, tells us what hour it is. Even when the shorthand is in between numbers, it is always linked back to the last number that the hand touched. The long hand on the clock is called the minute hand, and that tells us how many minutes have passed within the hour. Sometimes a clock even has another hand, and that is called the second hand. This hand goes around once every minute because 60 seconds are in 1 minute. Both hands of the clock are moving around in the same direction. To tell time, we first look at the shorthand, which tells us what hour it is. Then we look at the long hand on the clock, which is called the minute hand. In order to tell the minutes, each of the big numbers on the clock stands for 5-minute increments. So it goes 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. 60 minutes is also equal to 1 hour, which is why the clock goes all the way back to the 12. Each of these dashes in between the numbers on the clock also can stand for 1 minute, so you can count that way in between the big numbers as well. Now that we know what the features of a clock are, let's practice telling what hour it is. Remember, the hour hand is the shorthand on the clock. So in this picture, the hour hand is pointing to the 1. The minute hand is at the very top, so we know it is a new hour. So now that we know it is 1 o'clock. O'clock is a special word that we use to tell us the exact hour of time. Now that we know how to find 1 o'clock, let's try to figure out what this time is. We know that we start by looking at the shorthand, the hour hand. The hour hand in this picture is pointing at the 2. Now we look at the minute hand. It is at the very top. So now we know that it is 2 o'clock. Starting by looking at the hour hand first, we look and we know it's at the 3. Then we go to the minute hand, and it is at the top too. So we know it is a new hour. So now we combine them and we know that it is 3 o'clock. The hour hand is pointing to the 4, so we know it is 4. And now we look to the minute hand. It is straight up at the top at the 12, so we know that it is starting a new hour. So it is 4 o'clock. The hour hand is pointing to the 5, and now we look to the minute hand, which is pointing to the 12. So we know it's starting a new hour once again, and so we know it is 5 o'clock. The short hand is pointing to the 6, and the minute hand is up at the top still, so we know that it is 6 o'clock. The short hand, which is the hour hand, is pointing to the 7, and the minute hand is still up at the 12, so we know that it is 7 o'clock now. Start by looking at the short hand called the hour hand, and we now see that it's on the 8. Move to the minute hand, which is still up on the 12, so we know it is 8 o'clock. The hour hand is now on the 9, and now we look to the minute hand, and it's up at the 12 still, so it is 9 o'clock now. Now the hour hand is at the 10. Look to the minute hand next, still up at the 12, so now it's 10 o'clock. The hour hand has moved once again. Now it's at the 11. Look to the minute hand, it's still up at the 12, so now it is 11 o'clock. The hour hand is at the 12 now. Look where the minute hand is too. It is at the 12, so now it is 12 o'clock. Every day, the hour hand goes around the clock 2 times because 24 hours are in 1 day. Now let's practice counting by 5s to show you how many minutes each number represents on the clock. Here we go. Starting with the 1, which represents 5 minutes. So we move from 5. Now the 2 on the clock represents 10 minutes. The 3 on the clock represents 15 minutes. The 4 on the clock represents 20 minutes. The 5 on the clock represents 25 minutes. The 6 on the clock represents 30 minutes, which is also known as a half of an hour because we're halfway to the back to the top to 12. The 7 on the clock represents 35 minutes past the hour. The 8 on the clock also represents 40 minutes. 9 minutes on the clock represents 45 minutes. 10 on the clock represents 50 minutes. The 11 on the clock represents 55 minutes. The 12 represents 60 minutes that have been completed. So we're at the top, starting a new hour. All right, let's practice combining the hour and minutes together now. First, let's look to the hour hand, which is the shorthand, and we see that it is at the 1. Look to the minute hand, which is the long hand, and it's pointing to the 6. Let's count by 5s to get to 6. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. We did it! So it is 1:30. Now you try. Look to the shorthand first. It's pointing to the 3. Where's the minute hand? Pointing. You're right, to the 12. So we know it's a new hour, 3 o'clock. You guys are so smart. Let's try another one. The hour hand is pointing to the 8. Good. Now look to the minute hand and we see it's at the 1, which represents 5 minutes. So it's 8:05. Okay, let's try a tricky one since you guys are so smart at telling time. Look to the hour hand. What time is it? All right, once you have it, move over to the minutes. Look at the minute hand. Count by 5s to get to 5. So what time is it? If you guessed 9:25, you are right. Good job. So today we learned that the clock goes around 2 times during the day. So daytime hours are called AM, which means they happen before noon. And nighttime hours are called PM, which means past noon. This helps us know if people are meaning morning or night when they are telling time. There are also different types of clocks. This is a picture of a digital clock, and it shows us time using numbers and a colon. These clocks don't have the hour or minute hands, but we read these clocks by knowing the hour is before the colon and the minutes are after. So tell me what time it is. If you guess that this clock says that it is 2:30, then you are right. Good job! This is another type of clock. It's called an analog clock, and these are ones that tell time gradually. So that means that it moves from one time to the next. Like we talked about today, it has both the hour hand and the minute hand on it. See, telling time is very important so we know when to wake up, when to play, go to school, eat dinner, meet friends at the movies, or even when it's time to go to bed. So I hope you've learned a lot about telling time, and now it's time for us to go.